Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to today's webcast, The State of Mobile 2016, brought to you by VentureBeat and Leanplum. I'm Wendy Schuchart. I'll be producing today's event, and I'm an editor and analyst at VentureBeat. And we have just a few announcements before we bring in our panel of esteemed guests. We have Momchil Kyurkchiev, he's the CEO of Leanplum. We also have Fabian Seelbach, he's the GM International of Lumosity, and we also have Annan, he's the product manager of Slice. So before we dive in, I just want to show our audience quickly how to use our portal. Now the slides are going to advance automatically throughout the event. You can also download a copy of the slides by clicking the attachments button above the video window, and you'll find the attachments there, as well as a bunch of other goodies out there. If you have any questions, you may actually ask questions at any time by using the question or the ask a question button on the top of your player. Depends on what kind of browser you have as to how that is labeled. And we'll be watching that. I'll be monitoring that on my end as well. So you can feel free to ask a question then. And if you have any technical problems or if you're having sound issues, go into the ratings box or the rate this box, and there's a technical help guide there. And with that, I'm going to hand it right over to Momchil. Momchil, take it away.
Thank you, everyone. And this is Momchil Kyurkchiev. I'm the co-founder and CEO here at Leanplum. And I'm joined today by some of the leaders in the mobile industry to discuss the state of mobile for 2016. But before I delve into this, I just wanted to give a little background about myself and the company Leanplum. Leanplum is the leading mobile marketing automation company, and we make apps smarter by empowering product managers and marketers to drive engagement and results through personalized messaging, A/B testing, and analytics, all in one platform. We've done this for leading apps like Expedia, Lyft, and Nordstrom, and we really empower marketers and product managers to move fast and innovate within the mobile platform. Prior to starting Leanplum, I spent many years at Google together with my co-founder, where we were on what later became the growth team, and we were really tasked with driving engagement. In the case of YouTube, it was watch time on the web platform. So we took those lessons and realized we can apply them through the broader industry of mobile, and this is why we started Leanplum. And it's been a very exciting journey of really rethinking and reimagining what marketing means in a mobile world. And it's a very exciting time for marketing. Mobile probably is the biggest shift in marketing we've seen in over a decade, since the web days. It's radically changing the way enterprises and companies around the world are interacting with their customers and how they build relationships with them. One of my favorite statistics about the growth of mobile, just the sheer volume of users, is that by the year of 2020, there's going to be 6.1 billion smartphone users around the world. And 2 billion of those users are going to be net new internet users. Those are users that have never used the internet before. So if you're a marketer, you really want to have that kind of reach to people who you've never been able to access before in a digital way. But also, it really transforms the way the enterprises are working, because they have the ability to interact with consumers, such a vast number of consumers around the world. They really need to start thinking about mobile not as a channel, but as a device. It's a computer. It's the computer, the primary computer for many people around the world, including countries like India and Indonesia, where people use their smartphone as their only computer. And so this is a really vast opportunity for marketers to be able to reach consumers in a very personal way on a smartphone that's always on them, interact with them. And all of this growth really results into opportunities for companies around the world. Just m-commerce alone has grown tremendously from the past holiday season, November through December of 2014, until this past holiday season, which was November, December of 15, the growth was 59%. And this is just volume of shopping that's done on a mobile device. Another interesting statistic I'd like to share is something by eMarketer, which highlighted the importance of email still within the marketer. And just over the last couple of years, email has grown by 14% in terms of sends, yet consumers are responding by not opening those emails. And so there's been a drop in 25% of email opens. So really what this means for the marketers, they really fundamentally need to rethink how they interact with consumers and interact in a very personal way on the device that's always on them and really understand customer behavior. old model of marketing, which has always been centered around the considered purchase, understanding customers and giving them all the tools they need in order for them to sit down and really spend the time, maybe 30 minutes in front of the TV and do that shopping at home, this model is changing. The new model of interaction and the way marketers are interacting with consumers is through a mobile device. And mobile device interactions don't happen at a 30-minute chunk. They happen a couple of minutes at a time. In fact, the statistics show that on average, consumers open their smartphones 200 times a day. So all these 200 times a day, there's an opportunity for a marketer to go and engage with the customer and understand their needs in the context of who they are, but also the location component of it, which shows where they are as well. So it really gives you a lot more leverage to be very timely, to be able to respond on demand, and be very contextual and personalized. The age of mobile is the age of personalization. And really the holy grail of marketing has always been about this idea of understanding the customer and being able to deliver to them only the information and product they need at the moment of need and at the right place. And when we talk about mobile, we really mean mobile apps. If you look at time spent in mobile apps compared to mobile web, the mobile apps actually surpassed mobile web in April of 2014. And you can see the trajectory there. If you look at just time spent on mobile apps versus mobile web combined, just mobile web on a device, the ratio is 89% to 11%. So consumers are really picking the medium they want to use to interact on those devices, and that's the apps. One of my favorite anecdotes is this past summer, one of the biggest retailers in India, it's actually an online retailer, it's a mobile company called Schuchart. They decided to delete their website because they thought it was just too much maintenance for them to maintain a website and a mobile app. And consumers in India are all mobile, so they prefer to use the app itself. So this is maybe too much of a stretch in terms of what we can achieve here in the U.S., but it's really exciting to see where mobile is bringing us in terms of interaction and the ability to create experiences for the next generation of consumer that is using the mobile device as their primary computer. And yet, it's really hard to create really personalized experiences. In fact, we've looked at our own data set, and we've seen that 3 out of 10 people download an app and use it only once. And those consumers, they do spend enough time in the apps, on average about 3 minutes. However, that time is just not enough for them to be able to come back and use the app. And so if you're a marketer and you work for one of those enterprises or companies, a third of your budget really gets wasted by not being able to engage with consumers right from the get-go. And as a result of that, a lot of revenue gets left on the table as well. If you look at shopping cart abandonment, on mobile, the average is about 90%, whereas on the web, it's 60%. And so if you just do the math, we're talking about billions and billions of dollars, which is not fulfilled revenue because of the fact that the medium is just not optimized. And so how do you really need to address this? Personalization means that you need to understand the context of where the user is and what they've done in the past in order to engage with them in the right moment of need. One of those 200 moments a day that happen where you open your mobile device and you want to do something with it. And so I really like to illustrate this with an example. Let's say you're booking a flight to Seattle, and so you arrive at the airport. So a marketer can really understand the fact that a consumer is entering the geofence around the airport and be very contextual with their upsell opportunity for maybe a car rental. However, they can also be smart about not letting, only sending a notification to users who have not actually made that car rental in Seattle. And so this is a very relevant contextual push notification that can just say, hey, Matt, do you need a car for Seattle? The timing is right, the location is right, and the user knows that that's a notification that's really targeted to them personally. However, that's only part of the equation. The other part is really being able to drive conversions, and the conversion here is the car rental in this case. And so being able to allow the marketer to then drive users in the app experience in a very personalized way is really key as well. And so with dynamic deep linking, the marketer can send the user right in the app with all the dates already pre-selected, with the city destination already selected as well, so the consumer can just quickly go in and pick the car they need and reserve it right on the go. So this is one of those so-called mobile moments that are so valuable and happen hundreds of times across billions of users around the world, and marketers have the opportunity to add value by understanding the context and being able to provide information that the consumer actually needs. And so I'd like to invite our audience today on the webinar to share their thoughts in the questions box of which of them is of higher priority for 2016, the mobile apps or the mobile app. And we'll be able to tally the results together at the end of the webinar.
And audience, go ahead and use your questions button to type in your answer now.
So before we delve into the panels, the panel for today, I'd like to share quick 3 case studies that we've worked with here at Leanplum. And so the first one is with a company called PIXOWL that was really able to leverage this level of personalization in order to drive more revenue for their game. And so PIXOWL is a leading gaming company that provides games for consumers and has the ability to offer free currency in terms of promotions on a bi-weekly basis. And so what they noticed is that historically they've been doing that through push notifications. However, they would send the same push notification to all users around the world at the same time. And so some people would get it at their perfect time because they're morning users and they love the app in the morning. However, somebody who maybe prefers the app to play the game in the afternoon may think that that's an inappropriate push notification. So timing is a really key component of being able to personalize. And so what they were able to leverage is this concept of optimal time, which we've been able to build here at Leanplum, which is able to personalize the delivery of the push notification down to the individual user. So we understand what is the best time for somebody to get a push notification and then deliver that push notification in that moment for them within a 24-hour period. And that really worked for them. That brought in 18% more opens for push notifications. So people are more likely to engage with push notifications when they get them at the right time. But also that led to 17% increase in revenue. And this is really the exciting part about them because this is really meaningful for their business. The next case study is with MIXBOOK. And they were able to use a push notification reminder to get conversions increased by 14%. And so MIXBOOK is a photo sharing app, a photo book sharing app. And so you can go in and share your photos and create a photo book. And so what they noticed is that most users would actually abandon their photo books as they're getting created because it takes a while for users to actually create a photo book. And so by timing their push notification reminder to bring people back in the app, and by applying the right amount of personalization, maybe you mentioned the name of the photo book, you also play with the amount of time you want to wait before you send a push notification, they were able to get the 14% lift in conversions, which results in 14% more revenue. Interestingly, though, that wasn't the first thing they tried. In fact, they tried multiple iterations of this push notification reminder, and the first few, in fact, didn't deliver any results at all, or maybe had a slightly negative impact. But only through continuous A/B testing and really focus on the analytics and the results were they able to get that 14% lift. And so we've talked a lot about push notifications here, but one of the really key things to understand is that the majority of users nowadays do not have push notifications enabled. In fact, the statistic is that only 43% of users enable push across the industry. And so if you really want to have a successful push notification strategy and apply that level of personalization, you want to ensure that push notifications are actually something that users can receive on their end. And so Last Minute Travel was one of those companies that was able to increase that opt-in rate for push from 22%, which is below average, to an industry-leading 62%. And how they did that? Again, by applying personalization. They were able to remove their prompts. The first thing they did when a new user opens the app was to ask for a push notification enablement. They were able to remove that and instead apply multiple touch points along the customer journey and ask in the context of why you need to enable push notification. So instead of just asking the first thing you do in the app, maybe you can ask when somebody buys a flight, books a flight through the app, through Last Minute Travel, and you can tell them, hey, do you want to get notified if the flight gets delayed? If so, please enable push. And that's the kind of context that users need in order to trust that the app can deliver value to them through push notifications. And so you can really do this and scale it up by having multiple touch points with the user, being able to remind them later, and giving them the ability to understand the value of push before you force them into that system prompt, which unfortunately, once you say no to that, there's no way, for most intents and purposes, for people to re-enable push unless they go into 5 layers of settings on their phone. So with that, I'd like to present our esteemed panelists. Today, we're going to be talking about the state of mobile. And so I'd really like to focus on some of the best practices and learnings that our panelists have gathered through 2015, as well as look into 2016 and see what are the strategies that they're hoping to be able to achieve. And so first, I'd like to ask all panelists to present themselves, state your name, state your title, the company, and as well as what the company does.
Hi, I'm Fabian Seelbach. I'm the GM of International at Lumos Labs, the creator of the Lumosity brain training app. We have about 70 million users all around the world in virtually every country and territory.
And hi, I'm Tim Annan, the product manager at Slice. We build apps and services that bring power and utility back to your email inbox, and that includes our Slice shopping assistants that give you automated package tracking and price drop alerts, and the Unroll.me email subscription product that just recently launched on iOS.
I think did we lose Momchil? Momchil, are you there? Uh-oh, that doesn't sound good. Tim and Fabian, are you still there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. While we wait for Momchil to return, oh, wait, maybe that was him? No, not quite. While we wait for Momchil to return, I'm going to intro the next vote. And audience, at this point, can you reach out and use the questions button and tell us what are some of the biggest challenges you've encountered in your mobile marketing strategy? This is an opportunity. This is a great reason why our live attending our events live has the value for you, because you can actually maybe even get some advice from our esteemed panel. So, Fabian, I'm curious, what do you think are the biggest challenges that our audience is facing in terms of mobile marketing strategy? What have you seen?
I think on our side, what we've seen is really challenges in the user acquisition. Over 2015, there were a lot of changes in the app install advertising ecosystem. We saw some new ad formats, some recently released by Google. We've seen a lot of new players offering different inventory that we weren't seeing before. And on our side, just testing those latest options and evaluating their viability for us as a business, the resources that required was actually quite significant already.
Well said. Thanks, Fabian. And Tim, what do you think? What are you seeing in terms of your customers? What are their biggest challenges with their mobile marketing strategy? I'm really curious because I know a little bit about what Slice is doing. Curious to see what you're going to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for us, just like Fabian, we're seeing sort of the same challenges in paid channels, whether it's experimenting with new channels and the challenges that come up with that, maintaining quality, sustaining your sort of trajectory and your growth rate on new channels that are working well but maybe aren't fully mature yet. And then on top of that, marketing challenges we're having are around sort of acquiring users organically, or building in the viral components to our apps. When your app isn't necessarily inherently social, how do you do that? How do you keep it relevant? How do you make it something that your users want to share with their friends, that they feel compelled and they feel like they're giving their friends something useful?
Well said. Thank you. I think we have Momchil. Are you back? Okay, no. So with that, I'm gonna jump into the Q&A a little bit earlier, and hopefully Momchil will resolve his technical problems that he's having in terms of the call-in. So I'm curious, and thank you, audience, for continuing to ask questions throughout the event. So Tim and Fabian. Oh, hey, there you are.
Yeah, sounds great.
We can hear you. All right. Well, Momchil, I jumped ahead and I asked the audience to start telling us a little bit about the problems that they're having with their mobile marketing strategy. So they're going to be providing that into the questions box right now, but feel free to take it away.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate that. Apologize for the technical difficulties here. And so I'd like to get started by just asking our panelists if they could share their biggest user learnings from 2015.
Sure, I can start.
Okay.
On the Lumosity side, one thing we've seen is that the moments of relevance that work for our users on our previous web product because we're more of a legacy company. We got started 10 years ago, so we have a significant web base, are actually very similar to the moments of relevance that we saw on mobile. So for example, engagement around purchase abandoned or engagement around certain milestones in the user training experience equally hold true on the mobile side. While of course on the mobile side, we have a lot more points that we can engage them with, but we also engage the user around those moments of relevance in a very different way than we used to do on email.
Thank you, Fabian. And Tim?
I think we sort of had two big user learnings this year based on some of the projects we worked on. One of them was around how important design is. We've done a lot of iterations on designs, iterations on language, for example, and we see that design really matters. Having some sort of a cute element, making it apparent that you've put a lot of care into this product really works well at increasing engagement, increasing conversion. And the other thing is keeping the app feeling snappy. That's something we've been working really hard on as far as not only increasing app speed, but also when we're doing very resource-intensive background tasks, making sure that we have an activity or we have some piece of our onboarding flow that is still in progress while we're doing that in the background.
Thank you. And specifically around challenges, what are some of the challenges you both have encountered in terms of marketing your apps?
We already covered a little bit of that on the user acquisition side a moment ago. I think the other challenge that, of course, we, like all other apps, as Momchil, you've mentioned the statistics around how many users don't re-engage with the apps and how the retention curves are looking. I think, of course, that's a similar challenge for us. I would say for us it's even more important because we want to offer our users the best training experience for their brain, and we are always looking for them to come back regularly if they use our free product or if they use our paid product with the additional features.
And I would agree with that. I think that one of our biggest challenges, over the last year has been how do we stay top of mind for our casual users, so people who either don't have a lot of email subscriptions or aren't necessarily doing a lot of online shopping. How do we make sure that we're staying top of mind? They're aware of who we are, they remember what we do for them, and just the challenges around that without getting in all over their inbox or sending them a lot of push notifications that are highly relevant.
And specifically around, if you could mention one challenge that you've been able to address in 2015 that you're really proud of solving, could you highlight one for both of you?
I think for us at Lumosity, the biggest thing we solved in last year was that we brought our mobile apps to feature and game parity with our web product. One of the problems of being a legacy business, and so that allowed us to actually unify some of our marketing and have the messages be the same to our users and reach out with similar ideas where really people can train anytime and anywhere. It doesn't matter if they're in front of a computer or on a mobile device, and they can really train across the Android tablet with their iPhone, with their Mac or PC, which simplified things for us greatly.
And for Slice, I'd say that the thing we're most proud of solving this year will have been our onboarding conversion rate. So from install and opening the app right through to push notification acceptance. We spent a lot of time iterating with new designs, new copy, running tests on various combinations of copy and design, and push notification placement and treatment. And we sort of dialed that in a lot over the course of the last year and have gotten that to a rate that we're really happy with across all of our acquisition channels.
So this, Tim, this leads really well into my next question, which is around user onboarding flow. How important is it for the overall customer lifecycle, as well as how does it apply to individual new features that you're launching? Do you think about it in the same way in terms of onboarding new features, or do you have a common onboarding experience just for new users?
So for us, I mean, we've really focused on keeping our onboarding slow and incremental, keeping it looking really fresh and relevant to people, breaking out the steps, only asking for things when it's relevant. This is sort of moving beyond the push notification pre-prompt, making sure that you are also asking when it's relevant with some sort of extra information around why it's important. And then as far as sort of launching new features, getting those new features adopted, we sort of take a different approach to that. We try to put those features front and center as much as possible. We found that in-app prompts have sort of the best success there. We can, when a user is doing something that is relevant to the new feature, we can present it to them and we can deep link them directly into that feature, into some piece of it that's relevant to them.
For us at Lumosity, we use a relatively long onboarding flow for our users. So the user, when they register, they sign up, they play 3 of our fit test games, they receive some background information about each one of the games, and they also answer some demographic questions. So all in all, that takes about 10 to 15 minutes per user. And actually collecting all that information is really critical to us because, for example, the demographic information, we use that to then share information back with the user on how they performed relative to their age group and gender in our fit test games. And we found that while this is a relatively long flow and feels counterintuitive to getting the user in as soon as possible into the app, we found that actually this longer flow does a better job of explaining the application and explaining also the science that is leveraged in our games, and ultimately does a better job of keeping the user in the app for longer because they understand the value we're providing. Of course, then later in the life cycle, our focus is on engaging the user and keeping them excited to train regularly. Some of our users have really unbelievable streaks of training with Lumosity every day for multiple years. And so our communication that we have with our users is designed to encourage all of our users to achieve similar feats.
Thank you, Fabian. And so my next question is around mobile marketing automation and how you're able to leverage that post-install in order to make sure you can deliver on your KPIs. And maybe for the audience here on the webinar, if you don't mind sharing, what are those core KPIs that you care about as a company and how you've been able to achieve those goals through marketing automation?
Sure. So at Slice, we're taking sort of 2 marketing and media automation approaches, really around push and emails. For Slice, we're using, and for Unroll Me as well, we're using very targeted push, personal push. It's almost purely transactional. We're trying to stay, extremely relevant to exactly what users have downloaded our apps for, so that they feel that they can trust us, they can continue to keep the app on their phone, and they're still getting a lot of value out of it. As far as emails, for Slice, we do send emails around new features and things, new projects that we're working on that users might be interested in based on how they've been using our apps. So we're using sort of those 2 channels to get to our users. And then in addition to that, we do tailor and target that marketing automation experience that the user is receiving based on how we acquired them and their sort of usage patterns, so that for users who are more vested in our product, we're a lot more comfortable reaching out to them more often instead of users who may have come through a paid channel and are only periodically using the applications.
At Lumosity, Momchil, you asked about our KPIs. So the key KPIs we, of course, look at is the retention rate for our users, which we really measure by the number of training sessions that users complete over a certain period of time. That's a very critical measure for us on the success of our product. Of course, being a freemium business model, the other metric we look at is the conversion rate from our free tier to the premium tier that we offer. And then under those 2 metrics, we have a variety of metrics below those that are either leading indicators or lagging indicators to that performance, giving us a more granular view. Similar to Slice, we use marketing automation really across all of our channels both push in-app messages as well as email. We use that to reach out to our users with a welcome drip that shares more detail about the product. There, because it's a longer content form, we use email, while we use push more for a short, snappy reminder. And then our in-app messages are targeted to how the user has engaged with the product, has personalized information about them, and is designed to encourage them to return the next day or offer them a discount to one of the premium tiers if they have met one of the criteria for our promotions.
Thank you. And so I'm going to ask the audience another vote question that you can share in the questions category here. But what are the top strategies that you're applying for your mobile marketing plan in 2016? And please respond to the questions box here. So going back to the panelists, in 2016, how do you plan on using push in new ways, push notifications, in new ways that can drive deeper personalization on mobile?
I think for us, when we look at push, one of the things we've seen is that push is incredibly powerful, but also carries some dangers with it because it's relatively intrusive on the user's home screen compared to mobile. And Momchil, you already mentioned that most users don't know how to go into the settings and either enable or disable their push notifications for their apps, then often leading to the uninstall. So the way we're actually looking at push notifications is more that to enable us to send more push notifications, it's really the deep personalization that makes that viable for us versus having a push notification and using that as a branching off point for further personalization that then happens in the app. I'm very much with Tim here, where every message that we send has to be extremely relevant, both in terms of the timing we send the message and the personalization of that message to the unique needs of that user in that moment.
Yeah, I would agree 100% with Fabian on this. I mean, you need to stay highly relevant. It needs to be highly personal. Right now, all of the data that is in our apps, both Slice, or both definitely on Rollme, Slice to a large degree, is all completely personal. It's only your data. It's only your information. And so with that, I think that our push just becomes inherently deeply personalized. It is your information. We're telling you things about your packages. We're telling you things about your email. We're telling you that your roll-up is ready, for example. So as part of that, we're thinking going forward about how we can provide more information to users, how we can provide them with more useful content through those apps, and just really keeping those push notifications and those deep links closely coupled and very relevant to what a user is looking for the application.
So going back to earlier when we discussed KPIs, Fabian mentioned from Lumosity that retention is one of the key metrics they care about, and sounds like the same for Slice. And so I was just curious, how do you measure or how do you really think about this concept of user decay, and how do you, that user decay meaning uninstall or just users slowly using the app less and less, and what are some of the strategies that you found work really well to be able to combat that user decay?
Yes, when we at Lumosity think about user decay, when we see the uninstall, that really is the ultimate expression of that we have failed to provide value to that user, and at that point, we've unfortunately lost the user. When we really look at that problem, we try to look at more early leading indicators. So as Tim mentioned, that those are around the engagement with the app. How many minutes are they spending with the app? Are they completing their workouts? What is the frequency of those workouts in a certain time period? But then we also look at secondary metrics, which are around what is the open rate of the emails we sent to that user? Have they actually opted out of emails maybe? And similar for push. So we get a more complete picture really across all channels, how that user is engaging with us. And based on that, can get a pretty good understanding of how excited they are to come back and train with our app every day, and based on that, find then what is the right messaging and what is actually the right channel to reach back out to that user and encourage them to use our app more frequently.
I would reiterate everything there. I mean, we look at how a user is using our app over time leading up to wherever their engagement falls off, or if they do ultimately uninstall. We look at the types of emails we're sending, the types of push notifications we've sent, which ones have been interacted with. And by looking at those patterns, we can get an overall idea of what channels work well for different types of users, whether it was how they were acquired or how they were using the application, which push notifications are really most powerful for our users. And we can use all of that to try and essentially stay top of mind to our users by sending just what they need and only being on their home screen when they really need to know about something from us.
And when it comes to discounts, I think a lot of apps out there have figured out ways to re-engage customers using discounts. So I was curious if you could share with the audience if you've done that, does that work? And if not, what are some of the other successful re-engagement tactics you've been able to apply without discounts?
At Lumosity, we certainly offer special sales that give our users discounts to subscribe to our premium tier. But when we use those, we don't really think about them as a tool for re-engaging dormant users. Our sales are really for the already engaged users who love the Lumosity app and the training experience, and who are excited to get the additional value from the premium subscription and those features that we offer with that. When we think about re-engaging users and keeping them engaged, we're actually lucky because we have a very large user group that is very excited to come back every day. And so we actually ask them if they would like to receive training reminders from us. And so that is one of the tools that we have where the user can actually customize which day they want to receive it over email or over a push notification. And we then, at the right time of day, remind that user to come back into the app and complete their daily training session. And it's been incredibly successful for us because it is one of those opt-in tools where the user has said, yes, I want to receive this. And we have incredible rates of users acting on that, coming back into the app and doing their training session that day, because they found what time of day works well for them to do this day after day after day.
And at Slice and Unroll Me, as we are a completely free service on our platform, we don't actually have the opportunity to offer our users discounts on our services or anything like that. But what we have found is that something as simple as offering seasonal features, so putting in holiday-related themes at the end of the year, making sure that we use in-app notifications to promote share shipment, the share shipment feature that we have, where you can, if you're sending a present across the country, you can very easily share that with the recipients so that they know that it's coming and they can track it the whole way. We found that by promoting those features throughout the year, as we release them or just reminding people about them, we're able to keep people engaged. And we found that by using in-app notifications, that's been the most powerful way of reminding people that there's this new feature or there's an existing feature that they just forgot about.
I think, Tim, that's a really great point around the specific features and reminding them. We've also found that incredibly successful because we have that premium tier where we can, for a certain period of time, make some of those premium features available to our free user base and get them excited about coming back using those additional tools. And it just serves as a great motivator because there is a time period on it when they can access those features that are normally only available to premium subscribers for free.
Thank you. And when it comes to customer insights, how have you been able to keep your app relevant, driven by those customer insights?
So at Slice, we've made sure that we're keeping all of the users' data front and center. We want the first thing you see when you come into the app and the last thing you see before you leave to be your packages in Slice or your emails in Unroll Me. And by doing that, it makes the app experience feel very personal. It makes the user feel very tied to it. And we leave less personal, less visible features to the background. They're there for sort of our power users who really enjoy them, but for the vast majority of users, we make sure we leave the things that people are using most often up front. And so an example of something like this would be for Enroll Me when we were doing our launch testing and getting sort of the app ready for final designs. We made the decision to make moving between your new subscriptions and editing and your roll-up to all be very easy and keep those navigations very close together. And by doing so, that meant that we were keeping the biggest activities really easy to access and keeping those interactions really snappy. And that decision was really made to move away from the bottom navigation bar just by watching how people were using the app and what the really common use cases were.
For us at Lumosity, customer insight is a really, really big topic. We're overall an extremely analytically driven company because of our science background. So really every day you will see the product and marketing teams, often actually with the help of our analytics team and our data science team, really diving deep into the data of how our users engaging with our app and what they're doing in the app. And the overriding goal on everybody's mind when we do that is how can we create an even better training experience for our users so that they're more excited to come back every day and go through their workout. The other thing that we've done in the last year to give even more focus to customer insights, we've added a dedicated user researcher to our team. And that has really helped lift our capabilities in that area to a new level. We're now using a much wider range of research tools outside the things that we were previously doing around surveys to discover what insights our customers can give us.
Yeah, I think Fabian.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to add on to Fabian's point about having different channels, not just your analytics team for gaining consumer insights. Being able to experience an app through the eyes of a user using some sort of either user testing platform or having users come in just to your office. We're a really small team here. We don't have sort of a dedicated user research person, but from time to time we'll go through that process, go through those activities, and we always come up with some sort of interesting insight or some experience that we hadn't quite experienced on our team, but real life users are falling into.
Thank you, Tim and Fabian. And just looking in 2016, what is the number one resolution that you're vowing to do differently for this year for your app businesses?
I would say it's not truly different from 2015, but I think for us it's testing fast, and by that I mean A/B testing, and increase that velocity of testing for us to understand quicker what our users need and want.
At Slice, I would agree. We're definitely looking to even increase our test velocity and then maintain it and keep a really good pace going through the year. That's something that we're focusing on. And so secondary to that, and also part of that, is focusing on how we can generate more network effect within our applications, how we can increase sharing volume of really relevant personal content or interesting facts, making those prompts feel really strong and feel very relevant to users.
Thank you. And now we've been able to collect some audience questions. If the audience has more questions, please feel free to post them in the questions box. But I'd like to hand it over to Wendy, who can manage that part of the panel discussion.
Thanks, guys. So we had asked the audience a couple of questions, and the responses are still coming in. But one of the things was what they were focusing on, mobile apps or mobile web. And I have to say, I'm a little surprised. It's about 85% are focusing on mobile apps, and about 15 to 14% are focusing on mobile web. Do you guys find that surprising?
I'm not terribly surprised. at Lumosity, because we got started so long ago, our web product is actually still based on Flash, which we all know doesn't really work on mobile devices. And for us, we've looked at that decision over and over again and have always come to the conclusion that mobile web is not the area to invest for us, but instead create the best app experience that we can, because that ultimately will be a better training experience for our users.
Yeah, in Slice, we've seen the same thing about building the best experience possible, or building the best experience possible on a mobile app is definitely more feasible. There's a lot of variability in mobile web and devices and browsers. And so for us, we definitely focus our efforts on building that app experience and making it as strong as possible.
Excellent. Thanks, Tim. We had also asked our audience what their biggest challenge was in their marketing strategy. And we've got a couple of great answers, so thank you, audience, for being so verbose in your answers. One said, providing data security and convincing customer about security implementation. More importantly, the user is concerned for making payment. Another one of our audience members says, attribution and cross-channel measurement continues to be one of the greatest challenges, and I've actually seen that personally with other anecdotes from other companies. So I have to say that I would say that's pretty in line with the industry. So thank you for that response. And then another one of our audience members said, how to keep the customer engaged. That's my biggest challenge in the mobile app world. Would like to know how we shall reach out to our customer to know them before they leave us. And Tim, I'm curious as to how you also are engaged in that with Slice. What are you guys doing for that to keep the audience engaged? And then Tim or Fabian, I'm going to go to you after Tim.
Yeah, Slice is really focused for the most part on email as far as that channel is concerned, because our push notifications are so transactional and are so highly targeted to exactly what's going on with your email account or your shopping. It becomes difficult, and it sort of ruins our level of trust with our users about sending them push notifications. So we've been using email primarily for that, focusing on things like offers or new partnerships we may have, new features we're launching, or even features that we'd really like users to be using and reminding them that they exist.
Well said. Fabian, how about you?
Yeah, at Lumosity we use a combination. On email we primarily use our welcome drip, where we share more information about the science that we leverage for our brain training program, which a lot of our customers love reading about, and as well as the studies that we've done by our science team. Of course, then on a more regular basis, we also send them push notifications around certain milestones that they reach in the training program, be that certain scores or statistics, or a certain number of training sessions, or a certain number of training time that has elapsed. So there the user understands what progress they've made in the program.
Well said. Thank you, Fabian. And Momchil, anything else to add?
No, I think this was always great to hear companies in the industry talking about ways to re-engage customers and understanding customers. I think this is really a challenge that everybody faces, and a lot of times companies tend to look for silver bullets, but it's always this mentality of understanding the customer through iteration, through experimentation, and not being afraid to really fail, because every time you do an experiment that's ultimately leading to maybe not being successful in that particular moment, that leads to you being successful in the long run. So my personal advice, having seen so many companies implement great strategies across the board with engagement, it's never the first thing you try that works. It's always this iteration and having this mentality of having the right set of tools in place and the data in front of you in order to make data-driven decisions and incremental improvements to get to that end goal of understanding the customer and keeping them around.
You know, if it were the first thing we tried that works, well, that wouldn't be any fun. It's fun in discovering what lever to push or what combination and what order, etc. Thank you, Momchil. That was great. Now, another great question from the audience is coming in. What are the most cost-effective channels for user acquisition? We tried AdWords with very poor results. So wondering what you guys think. Tim, let's go to you first. What do you think? What are the most cost-effective channels?
We've had pretty good luck with native ads on iOS, like in-app ads, both incentivized and non-incentivized ads. I think those have been good, cost-effective channels for us. You know, they are a lot of work. You have to maintain, you have to measure. There are a lot of challenges around that. I think for us, the best way to be cost-effective overall in user acquisition is making sure that we maintain a large, effectively portfolio of acquisition channels. You know, some with really high cost per user, some with a relatively low cost per user, and mixing those and blending those to make sure that, you know, we're sort of meeting an overall goal in terms of user acquisition and in terms of our user acquisition cost, but also making sure that we're getting a good mix of users and a good enough volume to sort of keep all of the cogs turning at the same time.
Well said. Thanks. And Fabian, how about you? What about Lumosity?
Yeah, I would agree with that. We use a variety of channels covering AdWords, Facebook, some advertising platforms, as well as TV and radio, and they all, for us, reach different audiences. I think what we found is that for different messages and visuals, we need to do a lot of testing to understand what the audience is in every channel, and then also just keep refreshing that as ads very quickly get stale. Now, it used to be that you could run them for months, and now we're actually down to weeks or days in some cases, where an audience is just exhausted from seeing a similar visual or a similar message. Specifically, I think if I think about our app install ads, I think equally AdWords hasn't been as successful for us. Facebook, I think, is looking a lot better for us. It's naturally a little bit easier because we have such a large existing audience of users. So using the lookalike function on Facebook gets incredibly accurate.
You know, actually, we also do this at VentureBeat, and we've been having great success also with Facebook. Have to say Facebook, and in our example, LinkedIn, because you know what we do is very, very professional. So it's related to that as well. So great question, Momchil. Anything else to add? What are you seeing for user acquisition for your clients?
Yeah, and then certainly user acquisition is a big challenge. I've seen the same around Facebook and being able to acquire cost-effectively there. However, everybody's sharing the pain of having to acquire customers at a very high cost and then being able to prove that out in terms of lifetime value in the end. And so a lot of customers have also turned into this concept of re-engagement and being able to reach customers through their apps. Typically, those are customers that used to be engaged at some point in the past, but now are dormant. So that's another way to acquire customers. Those are not net new customers for you, but they're still creating engagement and revenue. And that this is something that's been really important. And this is done through a channel that you already own and you don't have to pay for, which is the old channel of the app itself through the email delivery systems and as well as push notifications. So I think those are two alternative ways to acquire customers and reactivate them. They're not necessarily net new customers, but are a great way to make sure you have really good lifetime value for users and can justify that really expensive acquisition cost.
Well said. Thank you, Momchil. Now, Tim had mentioned something about native ads, and the next question has to do with that. What is the impact that these experts see in ad blocking that has come to the forefront with the launch of iOS 9.0? So, Tim, since you had mentioned native ads, I'm going to go to you first. What are you seeing?
Really, I think we're just seeing that some channels have lower volume than they did before, or that there might be a little bit of volatility in the volume coming from those channels. And so you really just need to be more reactive to the volume, to your cost per install or your cost per user. You need to be set up to just react to when a channel stops producing users, do you have another one to take its place? Do you need another one to take its place? Can you wait it out? Those are really just decisions you need to have the data for to be able to act on as fast as possible.
Well said, Tim. And Fabian, what do you think?
It's a very similar situation for us here at Lumosity. So far, the impact has been, I want to say, relatively small, knock on wood, but we're certainly watching every one of our channels very carefully to see what the impact, how the impact might materialize once ad blocking tools become more popular among the user base.
Well said, Fabian. Thank you. Momchil, are you guys seeing anything on your end in terms of the ad blocking issues?
I think there was a lot of publicity around when this came about, just a lot of press and a lot of buzz. In reality, both Tim and Fabian mentioned what I'm seeing in the industry, which is that people have taken a watch and see approach. So they're aware of this issue. They're not seeing the big impact there yet, and it just needs to be something to watch for and be able to react to it if it does become an issue in the future.
Yeah, it's interesting from VentureBeat side, we're really not seeing a ping either. You know, we notice a huge mobile audience, so it may just be that the appetite is overcoming the dampening on the iOS issue. So great question, audience member. Guys, we had that third poll asking about what the challenge was, and I have to say A/B testing was mentioned the most frequently among all of the audience. Are you guys? Can you guys talk a little bit more about the importance of A/B testing? I know we've been kind of talking about it a little bit, but if somebody isn't doing it, is that a mistake? Momchil, do you want to start?
Yes. So I already touched on this a little bit earlier, but A/B testing can be applied across multiple parts of the app experience. It could be applied in your push notification strategy. It could be applied within the app experience itself, the onboarding experience, the various different checkout flows, and so on and so forth, as well as being able to A/B test channels. So maybe you want to A/B test push notifications versus email, or the right mix of both in order to drive engagement. So A/B testing really is the core of how companies should be thinking about innovation. You know, my personal background, having worked at Google for many years, we've run hundreds of A/B tests there, and it's all about this ability to understanding that failure is a net improvement. You know, you need to learn what works with your users, what doesn't work, and you can only do this if you have the comfort of being able to fail a few times in order to succeed in the long term. And I always like to give this quote from Thomas Edison, who invented the light bulb, and they say that it's actually his quote. Somebody asked him, it took him 1,000 tries to invent the light bulb, and so someone asked him, what was it like to feel 999 times of failing every time, just trying and not making it work? And he responded, none of those things, none of those 999 trials were actually failure. In his mind, all of those were the steps required in order to get to the path to success. And I really love this. This really sets the whole stage for how innovation really happens.
That is absolutely inspirational, and it's something I hope that all of our audience takes really to heart in terms of not just A/B testing, but I think this whole industry in the state of mobile in general. You know, where it seems like maybe we have a roadblock, but really it's not a roadblock. It's learning that one way didn't necessarily work. Guys, we've got about 30 seconds left here. Any last tips? I'm going to start with Fabian. Any last tips real quickly for our audience?
I think as we were on the topic of A/B testing, I think that's ultimately is what is the most valuable thing. You'll learn a lot, and it's always time well spent.
Well said. And Tim, how about you? Any last parting words of wisdom?
You know, I'm gonna stay on theme with A/B testing and say if you're shipping, you should be testing.
Good. Really great advice there, guys, and one I'm going to take personally to heart, too. Well, guys, unfortunately, we are out of time, so on behalf of our esteemed panel, Momchil Kyurkchiev, the CEO of Leanplum, Fabian Seelbach of Lumosity, and Tim Annan of Slice, this has been Wendy Schuchart from VentureBeat, and signing off. This webinar was sponsored by Leanplum, and just want to remind you guys, in the attachments button, you're going to find a whole bunch of goodies in there for you, including ways to follow our speakers on Twitter and some great downloadable content that's out there for absolutely free. If you enjoyed today's webinar, or if you have suggestions on new webinars that you'd like to see, please give us a rating. Hit that ratings box, and you can write in text there. We take those very seriously, and we appreciate your time with us today. Thank you, audience, for attending today's webinar, The State of Mobile 2016. This webinar was brought to you by VentureBeat and Leanplum. Just as a reminder, all content was is the independent and responsible of the speakers and of VentureBeat and Leanplum. Thanks so much, and just a reminder, you can also watch this on demand. It will be available about 30 minutes after we're done recording. So thank you so much, and have a great day.